krodhāt bhavati sammohaḥ sammohāत् smritivibramaḥ smritibhramśāt buddhināśo buddhināśāt pranashyati.
Today we sit with one of the most psychologically precise verses in all of Sanskrit literature, from the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, verse 63. Listen to it first as sound. Krodhāt bhavati sammoha, sammohāt smriti vibrama, smriti bhramshad buddhi nasho, buddhi nashat pranashyati. Let us walk through it word by word. Krodhāt means from anger. The root is krudh, to burn with rage, and the ending of the word means arising out of. Bhavati means there comes into being. Sammoha is complete delusion. The root here is muh, to be stupefied, to lose consciousness, and the prefix sam intensifies it. Total bewilderment, the lights of the mind going out. So the first line says, from anger comes complete delusion. Then, sammohat smriti vibrama. From that delusion comes smriti vibrama, the wandering of memory. Smriti is memory, remembrance. Vibrama comes from the root bhram, to wander, to roam. What a precise image! In rage, your memory is not erased. It wanders off the path. Everything you know is still in you, but you cannot find it when you need it most. Now notice something subtle in the third phrase. Smriti bhramshad. The poet has changed the word. A moment ago, memory was merely wandering, vibhrama. Now it is bhramsha, from the root bhramsh, to fall, to slip away completely. The verse itself is sliding downhill, enacting the very fall it describes. From this fallen memory comes buddhi nasha, the destruction of buddhi. Buddhi comes from the root buddh, to awaken, the same root that gives us the word Buddha. Buddhi is your awakened discriminating intelligence, the faculty that knows right from wrong, real from unreal, wise from foolish. And finally, buddhi nashat pranashyati. When that inner discernment is destroyed, the person perishes utterly. Pranashyati, not just declines, is completely lost. Where does this verse appear? We are on the battlefield of Kurukshetra in the second chapter of the Gita, and Krishna is answering Arjuna's beautiful question. What does a person of steady wisdom actually look like? How do they speak? How do they walk? How do they sit? Krishna describes the mastered mind, and then in 2 verses he shows the opposite, the anatomy of a fall. And here is the key. Our verse is only the second half of the chain. The verse just before it, verse 62, gives the first 4 links. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa. A person dwells on sense objects. From dwelling comes attachment, sang. From attachment comes desire, kam. From desire, when it is blocked, comes anger, krodha. And then our verse takes over. Anger, delusion, memory failure, loss of intelligence, destruction. 8 links, 1 ladder going down. And remember, Arjuna himself has just lived this. In the first chapter, Overwhelmed by attachment to his kinsmen, his memory of dharma wavered, his discernment collapsed, and he dropped his bow. Krishna is not lecturing, he is diagnosing. Now the deeper meaning. The first insight is this: destruction is never an event, it is always a process. Nobody suddenly ruins their life. There is always a chain, and each link taken by itself looks harmless. A thought entertained, a little dwelling, a small craving fed. The verse teaches that you are never fighting the avalanche. You are always fighting the first pebble. The second insight concerns memory. The great commentator Shankara says the memory that fails here is not your phone number or your address. It is the remembrance of everything you have learned about how to live, the wisdom of your teachers, your own hard-won lessons, your sense of who you are. In rage, all of it becomes unreachable. This is how a lifetime of practice can be squandered in one furious hour. And the third insight, pranashyati, he perishes, does not mean physical death. The person still walks and breathes. What dies is the capacity to choose. The Gita's definition of spiritual death is chilling and exact: to be alive and no longer free. And the hidden hero of the whole teaching is that very first word of the previous verse, dhyayatah, dwelling. The same power of sustained attention that liberates you in meditation, dhyana, binds you when it is aimed at objects of craving. Attention is the primal currency. What you contemplate, you become. So the real battle is never anger management, it is attention management. It is remarkable how modern this is. Neuroscience calls it the amygdala hijack. In intense anger, stress chemicals flood the brain and functionally shut down the prefrontal cortex, the seat of working memory and judgment. Delusion, then memory failure, then loss of executive function. The ancient map and the modern scan agree, line by line. The Roman Stoic Seneca called anger a brief madness and said it must be defeated at its first movements, because once it gains momentum, reason has no vote. The Buddha taught the same architecture in his chain of dependent origination. Suffering is a cascade of conditions, and freedom lies in cutting an early link. And every one of us knows this chain from the inside. The message sent in fury, the words we cannot take back, the moment we later described by saying, "I don't know what came over me." What came over us has a name, sammohaḥ. So how do we live this verse? Let me offer you 3 doorways. First, a question for your contemplation. Trace your last fall backward. Take the most recent time anger made you say or do something you regret, and walk the chain in reverse. What were you dwelling on hours or even days before the explosion? Where was the earliest link where you could have stepped off the ladder? Second, ask, beneath my recurring anger, what blocked desire is hiding? The chain says, anger is always born of thwarted craving. Name the craving honestly, and the anger loses half its power. And here is your practice starting today. Call it the sacred pause. When you feel the heat rising in the jaw, in the chest, in the breath, take 3 slow breaths before any word or any action. You are not suppressing the anger. You are inserting a gap between anger and delusion, keeping your memory online, keeping the charioteer in the chariot. 3 breaths is all the wise mind needs to come back into the room. And once a week, take 5 quiet minutes and write out the 8 links of one emotional episode, from the first dwelling to the final outcome. Within a month, you will begin to see the ladder in real time, and a chain that is seen early is a chain already half broken. Krodhāt bhavati sammohaḥ, from anger, delusion. May you catch the first pebble long before the avalanche. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shantihi.
क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशो बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति